Can spirits claim a person as their own? Does the scientific explanation of sleep paralysis explain objects moving in a room? Do goblins harass those that believe in them? Today we test the believability of the goblins in the fields.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
We dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Hello, it's Tuesday. Welcome back to a wonderful day at Believing the Bizarre. I'll tell you what, energy
At
drinks
Believing the Bizarre.
are great. Energy drinks, they get you through it, you know?
I got more of the sugar-free Red Thunder at my house from the Boozar.
Red Thunder.
Not from the Boozar, but that was when I was introduced to it.
the Red Thunder.
The Red Thunder.
I remember liking it.
It's good.
I think I tried it. So I do want to say, if you are liking the episodes and you are really enjoying them and you want to show that you are liking them, for a little bit of love, please feel free to rate and share with 5 stars and leave a review on Apple and or Spotify. It means a lot if you want to show support for the show without spending any money. But if you do want to give a little bit, you can join our Patreon. But you can get ad-free episodes and they drop a little bit earlier. We have a lot more content on Patreon, like games, quizzes. Those are also the same as the games.
I would say a quiz and a game is different.
You think so?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Quizzes and games. And there's also more interactive material. But I do want to thank a couple of people that have joined. I would like to thank a George Porge. I think I said that right.
Yeah, what?
A George Porge
Okay.
and Tanner. Thank you very much for joining. So glad to have you on this Patreon journey with us. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
You sound like someone learning English for the first time. Who also had to use the thesaurus.
Oh, dude, I just want to say, do you know how crazy it was for me that I got roasted by the Alejandro from Hell's Kitchen
What are you talking about?
on Instagram? He said, he was like, did he say Manhattan?
Oh yeah.
Do you know how insane that was for me?
You did kind of I
heard
had
it.
your back.
After he said it, I was like, did I say Manhattan?
I had your back. You had the long ha,
Yeah.
the hey.
Yeah.
It was like Manhattan, but it had the
Yeah.
Manhattan. I had
Yeah.
your back.
But it's because I rooted for him for so hard on Hell's Kitchen. And he comes at me with a knife in the back. I'm like, God damn. Anyway, let's get into today's episode. So as you know, this is a listener episode. If you've recognized the pattern, we're doing 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. This is a listener episode
Oh, he's
today.
just giving away all the secrets tonight.
It's just a dark and snowy night in Ohio.
It is very snowy.
It is. So I've got 3 stories for us today. 3 listener encounters, if you will. This one takes place at my house.
No way.
This is my house.
Okay, I was
Not
like, no
my
way.
house.
I'm like, was it Steph or which dog submitted this to us?
Mars is like, I see a cat all the time, haunting my dreams. I think she put a little cocaine in here.
Yeah, indeed.
So this is from Davis, our listener Davis, where this took place somewhere, maybe America, I don't know,
In his house,
in his house in the early 2000s.
in a home in the early 2000s. We can all picture that.
I was there in a home.
Sure.
2000s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was. I was like, maybe I was in college. I don't know where I was. I'm not that old. Quote, this experience is about what looked like a shadow woman that I believed to either be a ghost or a shadow person at the time when it happened. A little bit about me. I believed in ghosts since the age of 7, and now that I'm an adult, I ghost hunt and I practice witchcraft.
It's like you beckon him and then you talk to him, right?
Call him in.
Call him in and then say next. All right.
He's doing,
Give me an EVP.
what's the quick dating?
Oh, speed dating.
He's doing speed dating for ghosts.
Speed ghost dating.
Speed ghost dating. I am somewhat sensitive to the paranormal, but I do not believe I am psychic. I believe the paranormal just shows itself to me a little bit more, which I would argue makes me
He's
psychic.
a little sensitive. We'll say sensitive.
Yeah. Now, I've never told this experience to anyone. To preface this experience, I've had paranormal activity around me most of my life, but nothing was anything close to what this experience was. My paranormal experiences started in the early 2000s when I was about 7. I was watching cartoons in the living room one day. I looked over to my right, and I saw a man with curly hair and round glasses sitting next to me. He had a knowing look on his face and gave me a nod when I realized he was semi-transparent. I looked over to the door in my mom's room and screamed for her, and when I looked back, he was gone, which I thought was an interesting. Everyone always complains about how they never see ghosts for the modern era. This is that.
I know he's got a laptop.
Yeah.
Was it a Mac? It's probably a Windows.
Probably early Windows.
Ugh. Dude, if for the rest of my life, like eternally as a spirit, I have a Windows, kill me again.
I don't know. I kind of like Windows for the games.
He's just playing Roller Coaster Tycoon in the afterlife.
Honestly, or Zoo Tycoon.
You can be playing Zoo Tycoon.
I like Zoo Tycoon a lot.
The Sims.
The number one.
The one, yeah. Maybe he's got the Pets version. We'll give him that.
Did you like the Pets version?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was too hard to
keep him alive.
Yes. Quote, around the same time, early in the morning, I would hear people talking on the TV when it was off, and my mom was not on the phone. It sounded like a man and 2 women. For a few years, that was the only paranormal activity I noticed. I started to get used to this paranormal activity, and then eventually it stopped. But after I hit puberty one night,
sorry, just the phrasing of all of a sudden I hit puberty, and then like the one night puberty hit me like a semi, and I was like, "Hey, mom."
Honestly, though, that's kind of how it hit me. It was pretty quick.
A semi.
It's pretty quick. It was like a sack of potatoes.
Did you have a paranormal experience that same day?
No, I did not. But after I hit puberty one night, I was laying in my bed trying to sleep, and I was tossing and turning. I was wide awake, and I started to get upset because I couldn't get to sleep. I looked over at my light-up globe, the only light in my room, and that's when I noticed a black figure in the shape of a woman. She walked closer to me and blocked out the light of the globe, but the wall still lit, giving her a more defined silhouette. She leaned over me, putting her face less than 3 inches from my face, and she stared a while. I'm not sure how long. And then she picked me up out of the bed. She felt like fine knit fabric, like pantyhose, but I could tell it was not clothing, it was her form. And where her hands were an inch or 2 from me, I could feel the static. The room smelled like ozone. As she held me, she whispered in my ear with a voice that sounded very seductive with the slight chorus effects and almost an unnatural reverb. She said, quote, "Take my gift, take my mark." When she said that, my fear went away. She kissed my forehead and laid me back in the bed. I feel like there's nothing I could have done to prevent her from doing whatever she wanted to do. For the next years, I didn't see her again. But since I turned 21 a few years ago, she comes to visit me. I've even seen her walking around the stores in the daytime. I feel like she's watching me, but I don't fear her. Side note, my house is also haunted by 2 ghosts now. I don't know if they're connected. I do have a few theories. 1, she is a shadow person, but unlike what I've heard about before. 2, she is a static person because of the static. And 3, she is from another dimension, like a demon, but not evil like demons. And that is Davis's story.
I think that's pretty typical. I think when a boy hits puberty and the hormones start going, I mean, don't we all get picked up by a shadow woman seductively, carried around?
I mean, I did, yeah.
That's how I knew.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, yeah.
Voice got deeper, picked up by shadow woman.
Yeah, no, it's I have a couple ideas about this, but we can save them for the discussion because I do want to have a nice discussion about this.
Nice, meaty discussion.
So this is from Kelvin. I think I'm saying it right.
Kelvin?
Yeah.
Like chemistry?
Yeah, like
measurement?
Hot. Yeah. It's hot or cold. Kelvins is a measurement of temperature.
I think so.
Temperature. Yeah, because Kelvins is like how they like rate the sun. This takes place in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He said this takes place in 2016 And he said, quote, I actually follow many paranormal podcasts, so you're not special, you idiots.
I'm sure he said that.
He did not say that. He could have. But this is the first time he submitted to his personal experience.
We got him. We got him.
Or he's saying that. He submitted it everywhere.
And everyone else like, we already heard that story on this one,
Yeah, right.
this one.
I talked to Jim Harold. He said, I decided that the only way to tell a story was by sending you an image. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to explain the details in English since it's not my first language, which...
Totally fair.
Totally fair.
Yeah, for sure.
My name is Kelvin. I'm from Brazil. I've had some weird stuff happen to me a couple times, but this story I'm going to tell is the most recent and also the weirdest. So I'm 27 years old now. I live by myself in the southern part of the country. But this story happens back in 2016 when I was still living with my mother in the state to the southeast. We were doing really bad financially at the time, so we were living in this small rented house. My bedroom was so small that I could barely had room to walk inside of it. Now he sent us this picture. It's tight. It's a tight bedroom.
Yeah, that's like a New York apartment right there.
Yeah, it's almost like an L shaped.
Yeah, like if that's Manhattan, that's $2,000 a month. Easy.
Easy.
Yeah. But you get the bagels, so it's fine.
Honestly? Yeah. I really like the bagels in Manhattan. They're very good. Manhattan. I can say it. Manhattan. So the nightstand is next to the bed, essentially. That's what this is. Now, understanding the position of the furniture in this room is important because it helps emphasize how weird this is. I disagree. So firstly, I must tell you that I had this really bad habit of eating in bed, which I confess I still have to this day. I did that a lot when I was younger as well.
Claire had a roommate. My wife, Claire, had a roommate in college, and she would sleep with like pizza boxes and like pans. Like the pan that she would cook a cake in, like that would be in the bed.
What?
Yeah. Like they didn't clean plates. They threw plates out when they found them months later in this girl's room.
Oh my God.
I'm not going to put a name out because I don't remember her name, but it was okay. Wild.
It's not the one I'm thinking about.
Probably not.
Okay. I forgot she lived with more than one girl. So I usually eat snacks and so on while I'm in the bed watching movies, YouTube or whatever. But back then, it was even worse because I used to have lunch and dinners in my bed very often. On the right side of my bed, there was this large plastic trunk, and I would always eat in bed, and then I'd put my plate on this trunk as if it were a nightstand. So one day, I was watching something on my laptop in bed, and I just had dinner, as always. I placed this glass plate on the trunk. After a while, I fell asleep. I'm not sure how much time later I was awakened by the sound of a fork moving on this glass plate. I instantly thought it was probably a mouse or a rat, or maybe even a cockroach that had gotten onto the plate. It's said in parentheses. I know that sounds very gross, but for context, this was a small rented house that was besides a field, and we often had these small animals that entered the house. Now, it was pitch black in the room. I couldn't see a thing in front of me, just pure blackness all around. Usually, we had at least some moonlight, and it was possible to see something, but on this specific night, I couldn't see anything at all, and the sound continued. I could only hear the fork moving on this glass plate, just would not stop, and that's when things started getting weird. I tried to look over at the trunk to see if I could visualize anything at all, but I realized that not only was I not able to see anything because of the darkness, but I could hardly move my body. I could just barely turn my neck a little bit to the left, to the side. I couldn't move anything else. I guess I was suffering from sleep paralysis. I know some people have it while they're sleeping, and others like me have it when they're awake. It felt like there was something really heavy over my body. I tried really hard to move, but I just couldn't. And the sound of the fork on the plate wouldn't stop. I started questioning myself. I said, is this really just an animal? The sound continued, and it started changing after a while. It seemed more like the fork was not moving. It was like shaking, almost like vibrating on the plate. I started getting really scared. I had suffered sleep paralysis before, but this was so extreme. I kept trying to move and failing miserably. And the sound of the fork was shaking on that plate. It was intensifying, as if something was about to happen. At this point, I was freaking out. I was desperately trying to move, and that sound of the fork shaking was getting faster and faster. And then, all of a sudden, things escalated even higher. I started feeling the blanket was covering my body, and it was moving up towards my head. and I started feeling it pass around my neck really slowly. I was getting desperate because I thought it was going to choke me or something. Now, luckily, it didn't. I have no idea how much time all that took. I just know that it took an eternity in my head. I can just remember myself lying there, trying to move, and I thought I was going to die. The sound of the fork shaking the glass plate and the blanket passing around my neck. At some point, I fell asleep again. I don't remember anything else. The next morning, I woke up to the day and it was pretty bright outside. The first thing I did, I looked straight at the trunk to see what happened to the plate, and I was expecting it to be broken or something. But to my surprise, everything was just as it had left it the night before. Nothing had happened to it. But I did realize my blanket was not on the bed at all. I looked beside the bed in front of the trunk, and the blanket was not there either. I was confused. So I decided to look under the bed. This is the strangest part to him. The blanket was entirely under the bed, just the tip of it, hanging from the space between the bed and the wall. So I got tucked behind the bed. Mm-hmm. And, this was really confusing. And he thinks, how could this happen when the bed was literally touching the wall? So the only way for the blanket to have ended up down there was if someone had actually pressed it down beneath the bed and the wall. Now, to this day, he says, I don't understand what happened that night. One could claim that it was just a dream or that I imagined it, but none of that explains how the blanket was covering my entire body, passed around my neck, went through this tight space beyond the pillow, and ended up under the bed. I have no idea what this was. Thank you. Thank you, Kelvin. That gets so intense.
Yeah, sleep paralysis is no joke. Yeah, I mean, it's like why a game like Outlast is scarier than a game like Resident Evil 4. Like,
or
you
Silent
can't,
Hill.
Or Silent Hill. You can't fight. You can't defend yourself. When you have sleep paralysis, you're literally just like taking it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a fair fight between you and whatever.
That's exactly like I just started watching the show Evil. And a lot of that first season, the sleep paralysis.
Her sleep paralysis demon thing is so scary. Did you get to the video game one yet? The video game episode?
I did.
It's my favorite. The hospital one stressed me out. I got stressed when she was in the hospital. Or him.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the second season.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was terrible.
This is not sponsored by Evil. It's just a great show.
I really enjoy it. I'm really enjoying it.
It's an awesome show.
But yeah, the sleep paralysis demon.
I think that a bunch of field mice came over. I think he had sleep paralysis, but I think a bunch of field mice came over and were eating the crumbs. And they were like, let's take the blanket. And then they all got underneath it and they started moving. Yeah. So it looked like it was moving on its own, but all these mice were underneath it.
Could you imagine feeling that, though?
But then they just couldn't get it out. And then he's like, I'll get the fork. But he couldn't get that either. So
yeah, these mice were not having a good time. No, but really, though, if this cannot just be sleep paralysis. Because he couldn't move his body. How did he get tucked behind the bed?
I could argue that this is sleep paralysis. I mean, it is factually sleep paralysis.
Okay. But is it just sleep paralysis? That's the question.
I think I will have an argument for you. Well, it's not like we know what happens, but I think that you and I will have some back and forth about that in the discussion.
Okay. I'm excited to see what you're going to say. This next story is a Sophia story. Comes to us from Washington.
That means anonymous.
Yes.
For new listeners, because you might have stumbled up. It's crazy to think this might be someone's first episode they listened to.
Oh.
Like a big goblin fanatic.
Well, I guess I have to say, welcome aboard. Is that what you say? Welcome aboard.
Hello.
Oh, I guess that's more rational. Hello. Thank you for joining in. I hope you're having a good time. I'm having a good time. Yeah. I hope you're having fun too, Tyler.
Goblins.
Yeah, goblins.
From Sophia, who is anonymous.
Yeah, from Washington, not the DC, but the state.
See, she's anonymous, but she gave us more details than the first person.
My house.
Lifetime.
I just think it's funny how anyone just they take that differently.
4 walls.
Where is this?
Here.
Here.
My house?
I'm surprised
what a dumb question. Where do you think it would be?
My school, dummy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the state of Washington.
The state of Washington.
Okay.
This took place around 6 years. for her experience.
So her way of interpreting the question was 6 years.
Yeah, for time. When did this take place?
Okay, so we don't have a year.
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We roll with the punches of your interpretations of our form.
Could be. I think this takes place a while ago. She's in her 20s now, so this took place way back in the early 2000s.
Ooh, she was probably a Seattle Supersonics fan.
Is that baseball?
No, it was basketball. Kevin Durant got drafted there, and then they moved to Oklahoma City.
I'm going to be silly. Is that still a team?
Nope. They turned into the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh, the whole team did.
And they moved.
Damn. They got ravened?
They got ravensed.
All right. So she started this experience by saying, Duendes. This is my story of the experience with, I believe to be, Duendes. Duendes or Duendes are little elves or goblins originated from places like Latin America, Spain, Portugal, and the Philippines. And I don't know if you remember this. We mentioned Duendes in the, do you know?
The Cursed Cabin. No. When did we do it?
The Matrix episode, because I tried to say it, and Allie fucking schooled me.
Okay.
Because she laughed at me hard.
So he's referencing Let's Get Haunted. We did a collab with Let's Get Haunted, the podcast.
Yeah, and she she went, what'd you say? I said, I think I said Duendes.
Oh.
Duendes, and she said,
I don't think that's that silly. It's a different language. Now, you did try and say preface up here.
I've heard both ways. I've heard
preface. No one says preface. I promise.
Preface.
You looking in a mirror.
But she schooled me on how to say it. Now I know how to say it, but
it's burned in your. Charlie's showering, the water going over his face, and he's just thinking about that moment. If she was in here in person, she would have found a locker, and she would have shoved you in that locker.
Yeah, she would have.
And her horse would have used its.
That's Natalie. That's Nat would have also.
Oh, who made fun of you?
Allie.
Oh, I thought you. Okay.
Because Allie speaks Spanish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, they both would have killed me. Nat would have pulled did the noogie, and Allie would have wedged me.
Okay. And then Charlie had no more lunch money.
Anyway, back to the Duendes. Quote, this all started when I was about 4 years old and lasted until I was about 10. I'm 21 now. When I was 3, my grandparents adopted my older sister and I, and we moved into a big house in a quiet neighborhood between the city and the country in an area that had fields across every street. Where I'm from, agriculture is big, so there are fields of produce, wheat, alfalfa, and so on. And that's where I believe they lived. Anyways, I was a pretty quiet kid and didn't really cause too much trouble when I was on my own, so my grandparents didn't always worry too much if they couldn't see me at all times. However, around some time when my grandparents were becoming more comfortable with less supervision of me, this is when the Duendes began to start causing mischief in my life. It started with little things like scurrying noises or things being knocked over, mostly at night. But we had cats, so I always just assumed it was them, and sometimes it definitely could have been. However, things progressively got worse. Small objects, usually shiny things like jewelry, would go missing or be placed somewhere random like a counter or shelf on the other side of the house or behind a picture or under a chair. But most times, they were objects I would often use or borrow from my family. At first, my grandma just thought I was attention-seeking or trying to be funny, but eventually, she began scolding me for taking and hiding her things or losing track of my things in general. And I would try to explain to her that it wasn't me, but obviously, she didn't believe me. As the years passed, things got more intense. I would wake up with little random unexplained bruises or thin scratches on my arms and legs, which were always just blamed on playing outside as a kid. But these things were more like cat scratches and tiny bruises. But the one thing they did that I hated the most was freeze or burn me with shower water. I am still a little paranoid sometimes when I shower to this day. And anytime I would close my eyes or turn around in the shower, the water would be turned all the way to hot, scolding me. And I would have to jump back in, turn the knob down, or the water would be turned all the way to the painful cold. At first, I thought it was my sister playing games with me, until one day I screamed to my sister to stop messing with the water. My grandpa popped his head in to ask why I was screaming. When I told him my sister was messing with the water, my grandpa looked at me very strangely and told me she wasn't even home and stopped screaming. In fact, I actually knew she wasn't home at the time. And this is when I started to question what was really happening. All I remembered after that was standing in the water, my mind racing, thinking I was seriously losing it at 7 years old. This started happening so often that I began to hate showering. I became so paranoid about everything. I would stare at things when I would just put them down to make sure I wasn't misplacing stuff. And when they'd go missing, I'd ask everyone in the house if they moved it. In which the answer would usually be followed by, quote, "You have to learn to start keeping track of your things," end quote. And when I would shower, I would stare at the temperature knobs at all times and jerk the shower curtain back to catch whoever was trying to hide behind it. But one day, my paranoia paid off because I finally saw one, at least part of one. I got in the shower and began showering like any other day. But once I started to turn my head to the back of the shower, I snapped my head back toward the knob, and that's when I saw it. A little, skinny, either dark green or brown arm with long, pointed fingers quickly pulling away from the shower knob and disappearing behind the shower curtain. I stood there in disbelief. I couldn't move as I watched the shower curtain sway back and forth from just being brushed. I ripped the curtain back, but nothing was there. I didn't know if I was relieved or disappointed to find nothing, but the one thing I did know that is I wasn't crazy. Things calmed down for a little while after that, but they'd still move things from here and there, and they didn't bother me near as much as they did before. It kind of seemed like the less I cared, the less they would mess with me. As our city grew, the fields around where I lived began to get built upon, and there weren't many fields left around anymore. And that's when it fully stopped for a while. Fast forward to 2021, I moved away for college in that area, and you guessed it, there's a shit ton of fields around. Literally, across the street from my apartment complex was miles and miles of field. I kept finding stuff, mostly my shiny stuff, like my earrings or a bracelet or my dab pen, being moved or misplaced in weird spots, like a bag I hadn't touched in months, random pockets of clothing, and there was even a small pile of random stuff under my bed when I moved. I frequently took my dogs for walks in these fields, and had spotted circles of mushrooms, fairy circles, out there. She said, I don't know if there's any relation, but definitely a weird coincidence. However, moving from that apartment, I haven't experienced anything more myself. My adult brain, and he says, I'm just misplacing things in my apartment. My inner child keeps saying, it's Duendes. So that is Sophia's experience with Duendes. I really like the Duende.
Can you describe a duende? Because
Yeah.
we're talking about it, but people might not know what we're talking about.
So it's not factual, but let me show you a really good example.
Yeah, it's probably not real. But I want to know what you think they are.
Okay. In my mind, they look a little bit like this.
Okay.
And this is a D&D 5e goblin. They have pointed ears, long pointy fingers, kind of green skin, brown skin, red beady eyes, sharp pointy teeth. I think they are mischievous and they're silly. I like this one a lot.
He's like,
They're like little goblins. They're like the definition of like little elves, little goblins, like little evil elves, almost like smaller versions of the evil gremlins.
Evil strong word here?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Evil is definitely a strong word. Mischievous.
Mischievous.
Kind of like Loki, but less than Loki. I think they're just pranksters. Yeah.
What she's got to move somewhere without fields. She has to move to Manhattan.
Okay, so we're in the discussion now where we talk about our believability scales for these listener-submitted episodes, and we go from believable, from viable, skeptical, unbelievable, and we talk about where we want to put them on the scale.
Maybe not even where we want to, where we feel compelled to.
That's so dramatic.
Well, no, I don't really believe in fairies, so I kind of want to go unbelievable on the last story, but that doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do.
That's fair. I guess that's fair. No one said they're fairies. They're goblins.
Yeah, there's one big bucket, one big rusty chum bucket out there.
Of goblins?
Goblins and fairies.
Show this first story from Davis, where he experienced this always kind of paranormal going on in his life. And then after he hit puberty, this woman comes. Now, we talked about the static people a while ago. Is it black?
The black
static
stick man. They look like static, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like stick figures.
Yeah. This is not quite like that. Now, I have a couple of theories to go with this. It kind of sounds like a succubus to me.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It doesn't seem like it's demonic, but I could, from like it being a woman, a shadow figure, and seductive, I could see that.
Yeah. But also,
do you think it's demonic?
I don't know. I don't think it's good. I don't think, okay. If it's a real spirit, I don't think it's a good thing. Do you?
I wonder if it's a female entity that was in the home and he was just on her radar when he hit puberty. Like the way a female going through puberty might attract a poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this female entity sensed something different in him when he hit puberty.
Yeah. I just feel like anytime a spirit asks for a bargain, and to me, that's entirely what that was. Whether he said yes or not, it's a bargain. I feel like that is not good juju.
And we don't know what she wanted, like what it was, the gift, right? Or did she say gift? What was the phrase?
Take my mark.
Take the mark.
Accept my gift or something like that. Let me see what the actual phrasing was. Take my gift, take my mark. What does that mean?
Well, he has no idea. We have no idea.
Right. Is it the kiss? Is that the mark? Is it like, okay. Now, is it like, almost like she's marking her territory? Like, stay away from this? I'm planting my seeds here and like other entities can see it? Or am I just stretching? I don't know.
There's no way to know.
Right. I've never heard of anything like that.
I think there's a connection. I mean, I might be leaning too much into the puberty thing, but that's just because that's what he said.
We're taking this at face value.
Yeah.
I think if you really looked at it, I think there's a lot of, if you think about it like psychologically, this could be a boy just experience a dream.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was joking about when I was about the initiation into being,
like I feel like I had a lot of dreams about women picking me up when I was a kid.
That static connection. Now, the way he described her, where it was like fabric, but it felt like like stock. But
that feels real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do believe he saw the guy with the laptop, though. I think there's some hauntings going on here.
I do too. I also believe he's got ghosts in his apartment. I do feel like he's seeing shadow figures. Maybe it's not necessarily her, though. He said he sees her around, almost like it is an attachment.
Could it just be a female ghost or a female shadow figure that picked him up?
That's the thing. That's a lot of energy for a ghost to put out.
Well, it could be a dream based around seeing her. Like the picking him up part might not be true.
Could be a dream.
But it could be based on the fact that he'd seen her.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that she like penetrated his dreams. I'm saying he had a dream about her based on the fact that he had seen her in the home before.
Or what if she did enter his dreams and that was her way of communicating with him? We can't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Especially if he said he's not psychic, but he is sensitive.
That she woke up, there's literally like a gift waiting for him, and he just like didn't see it, didn't acknowledge it, threw it away. It looks like trash.
Not taking this gift.
It's not my birthday.
It says happy puberty on it.
And that's happy puberty. That's not real.
I don't know. I want you to go first because I'm not sure where
I go believable. I go believable that it's haunted. I don't think this experience necessarily happened. It could have been a dream, but he's seen ghosts, he's seen shadow figures. So for that reason, I think there is a haunting here.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my angle.
I don't think this woman is necessarily the attachment. I think that he does see figures and ghosts. That's why I'm not going believable, because I don't think it's her. I do think he does see entities, and I'm going to go viable.
So you don't think she exists?
Maybe she did at one point. I don't think she's still following him. I feel like that's a dream. I feel like he took this dream too literally. So I go viable. So the next story with Kelvin. So this takes place in Brazil. And he's asleep one night after having some delicious meal. Maybe.
Yeah, delicious meal.
I assume so. In bed.
It makes me think of like Sims when you don't choose the ingredients and it's just like food. She's like, oh, generic food with fork.
I wish he would have told us what he probably doesn't remember, but maybe
I feel like I would remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That like I would remember that meal, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell us.
So he ate this food and then he fell asleep watching something. And then the plate.
Did he wake up with the laptop on him?
No, he didn't say. I assumed it either went to sleep or closed it.
Okay.
So he put this plate made of glass, which he said was common in Brazil, which is interesting. So I put this plate on his trunk, and then he wakes up to this noise of like shaking or scratching, and then it escalates, and then he can't move, and then it's shaking even harder, almost like it's about to explode, and then the blanket starts moving up, and he's like almost getting choked, and then he passes out, and then he wakes up the next morning. So
he's just afraid he's going to get choked. It doesn't
actually choke him, right?
Yeah. The sensation of the blanket moving up.
That would be scary.
Would you think choking? Would that be what you'd be thinking about? What would you be thinking about that moment?
I'd be scared of smothering.
See, I was thinking, how terrifying would it be if it went over your head, and all of a sudden your whole body is covered, and you just look and there's something under the blanket with you. You know what I mean? It's like normally when you're scared, you put the cover over, but like imagine it being pulled over, and it's like now you can't see the room anymore. Now it's just like complete pitch black.
Yeah, well, he said it was already black.
Right, but at least like if there's a light, you could see it. If something moved, your eyes might be able to adjust. But this is like it's covering you up. So you're like,
imagine like lantern lights, and like you could see the eyes like lanterns in the darkness. Oh. So I can't think of an explanation for why the blanket would be tucked behind the bed, but you said you think you have something.
Yeah, I think he had sleep paralysis, and I think he probably experienced tossing and turning after that, and I think he's probably the one that shoved the blanket down there.
So it goes over his head, behind him.
No, I don't think that was real. I think that was sleep paralysis. Like when you're dreaming, like when like if the theory that if you have sleep paralysis and you see like a hag, she's not really there. I don't think his plate was shaking. I don't think his blanket was going over him. I'm saying I think he envisioned that.
Okay, so when did the blanket get over his head, behind him, and tucked in?
I think he did in his sleep. I think it freaked his body out. And I think like I don't know about you. I've woken up with sheets off, pillows off. Like I've moved things before.
Not to that extreme. I have not. That's so you think he did the whole thing?
I think it's possible.
I think that's so extreme.
You think he had one paranormal experience one time ever in one place, and it was this intense? Just one passing by entity that was just like, I'm gonna get you.
I would say
if there was am I right? This is a one time, only time it ever happened experience.
He said he's had them before, but not
sleep paralysis.
Not this extreme. He said this is the weirdest.
See, I wish we knew what other things happen. If I had a reason to believe that this was a haunted home, I would feel differently about this.
Yeah,
this feels like a one-off.
Like when people write to us, if they say like oh, I got more stories, write the whole thing out.
Yeah.
Don't just tell us one story.
You have a better chance of it being a main story on an episode if it's got multiple.
Like I wish you would all just tell us more.
I'm not going unbelievable, but I am going skeptical. Assuming that I don't know the history of his experience with paranormal, and if this is a one-off, I am skeptical.
It seems. So you think the plate is like an audio hallucination?
Yes.
And then the physical hallucination.
He even said he was expecting it to be broken or something, and he looked and it was exactly how it was. He said his phrasing, if I'm right, was exactly how he left it.
And also, it makes me feel like he actually was not awake because it was so dark. You usually see something by the moon.
And I still want to know where the laptop went.
That's totally fair. Yeah. Man, I might go down skeptical with you. I didn't think it was shit. Yeah, skeptical. The last story in Washington, Sophia's story. This takes place in the fields.
In the fields.
Duendes, my friend. Can you say it for me?
Duendes.
Duendes. Very good. I think we do it pretty well now.
Is it okay? I'll eat half. Please don't hurt me.
Yeah, I believe it 100%. It makes total sense that these fae entities lives in the fields.
Oh, so they are fae.
Yes.
Wait, when I said it,
you said they're fairies. I guess. Okay, I was nitpicking.
Okay, yeah,
I was nitpicking. You're right. They belong in that bucket, that chunky bucket of the fae. I believe that these entities, these nature spirits, live in the fields, and then when you go near the fields, they mess with you. Yeah, 100%. Now I don't know why they liked her.
Yeah. Why do you think they initially stopped?
Did they stop?
Yeah. She said it died down.
died down initially.
I have a theory, but I don't know anything about Fae and goblins. But I want to know what you think first. Before she said it died down, and then she went to college and it picked back up.
Oh, after she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like being seen. I think they died down because they realized that they were pushing the boundaries a little too far.
Yeah, that was my theory, is that it's like almost gamified, where it's like, oh, you caught me, so now you win, and I'm back off.
That's kind of that's what I think happened. If you catch them, they will back off.
So what makes this duendes rather than like a ghost? Just the fact that it's like mischievous?
It's mischievous things. It's also more associated with things missing, coming back up in places. It's also things to mess with you, like moving the water in the shower, moving keys. These are just, things to mess with you. And that's pretty common with Nordic folklore as well. Icelandic folklore with the little trolls and elves.
So are they spirits? Are they not physical?
They're more like earthbound spirits. They're more like elemental spirits. They are spirits, but they have a physical body.
So when they move the handle and then she looks and they're gone, where does it go?
Some would argue that they have the ability to become invisible.
Okay.
That's an explanation. Also, the other explanation is that they're able to get in very tight spaces, like pop into the wall, pop into cupboards. They do have some magic about them, if you buy into the folklore.
One thing that's keeping me from going like skeptical or unbelievable, because for a long time I was thinking, yeah, it could just be the sister playing with her. Mm-hmm. And then it's like when you start getting so intense about stuff and you start psyching yourself out.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe she didn't really see an arm. It's just she was so on edge. I mean, if you're to the point psychologically and stress and anxiety wise, where you're starting to be afraid to take showers, I could see a person in that state of mind seeing something.
I buy that. But also, I do want to just throw it out there. Fairy circles are known to be portals to the fairy world.
Did she see those on campus or by her house?
She said she saw them in the fields by her home in her apartment. Not when she was younger, when she was older.
Yeah. When she got older, I couldn't say it was the sister when she was older, but she didn't see those when she was younger. Like until that part of the story.
Point that out. She did not point that out.
And it wasn't like the water just went hot or cold. Like she had to physically turn
them. Yeah. It had to be a physical turn.
Yeah, there's too many unexplainable things. I don't know how I feel about duendes based on my own personal beliefs, but it seems like something is going on here. Something turned it.
I also do, another reason why they went away is because less nature in the area. The fields kind of went away. It was
I think that's what she was insinuating.
She was. I think she also caught it, and so I think a combination of those two things really pushed them away. I do. That's what I think it is. I do like the Fae. I think it's a Fae entity. Duendes are very powerful.
I'm going to go viable that it's something. I'm not going to necessarily say it's duendes, but there are things that you can't explain that she was experiencing outside of just like her sister stealing stuff. Like if it was just the water going hot or cold, then you could say someone's flushing or, something like that. Or even like seeing the arm, you could say she was just in a really bad state of mind. But if she has to physically turn it,
I wish you would have saw the head. I wish you would have saw the head of the Duende.
I'm glad that she didn't, because that'd be really spooky.
Yeah.
But there was... Sucks that her family was just like, pay better attention to your stuff. That's a whole other level of trauma right there.
That's true. You hear him, folks? We're getting him closer and closer to maybe accepting the Fae. We'll just keep pushing it. You and I, we're going to keep pushing them. And one day, maybe this year, maybe next, maybe the year after, we don't know. One day. I'm going to go fully believable. I believe this one day. So thank you for listening to this episode, The Goblins in the Fields.
The Goblins in the Fields.
Which just makes you think of like ancient England with like rising goblins to face knights, and I love it.
What was that one like cartoon? The Goblin and the Princess? Is that what it's called? The Princess and the Goblin? Y'all know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They're not little goblins though. They're like, there's like a big goblin, big ears. You've never seen it? I think it's The Princess and the Goblin.
Not seen that, no. No, it sounds fun though. So, thank you for submitting your listener submission stories. We appreciate them. And if you want to submit your own stories, how would you do that, Tyler?
You would go to believingthebizarre.com. In our navigation, you will find Submit Your Experience. Click on that, the left button, and then there's a form there. Do not be intimidated by the size of the box for you to write your story. Fill it out with as many details. Please do not say, I have more stories, but like take the time.
Give us all.
Just,
Give them all of them.
Dump it. Just dump it. It's like when you take your carpet, your vacuum, and you put it over the garbage can. You don't just put out some.
It's true.
You dump it all.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to reach up in there and get the clumps that might be stuck.
Ew.
Maybe that's just me. But we want it all. We want all the stories, and that way we're not questioning. Try and think. This is giving you guys more work, and we do appreciate that you submit anything to us.
Absolutely, that's true.
But try and think of any questions like when you read your story back, what questions crossed your mind? Maybe you're not reading. Maybe you're just doing a first draft.
Yeah.
I did that for literally 18 years of my life. I don't think I ever did a second draft in school until college, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll take. Never mind. We'll take whatever you give us, and we'll be happy, and we'll shut our mouths.
Yeah. But thank you for submitting. We appreciate you. And if you would like to, again, support the podcast in any way, and if you want to leave a review on Apple or Spotify, like these fine folks did, they left a review and a comment on the last episode, which was the demonic shadow in the mirror. What an intense episode. I just want to shout out a couple of people that said some things. Mystic Moth said, cryptids now, please, or Mothman will appear in your bed at 3 a.m.
They're going to be very disappointed unless...
I think you can count Duendes.
Goblins as cryptids?
I think so.
Okay. I think we can make that work.
Yeah. Celestial Maddie said, if you watch Kindred Spirits with Amy Broomy...
I know, I saw that.
There actually is a story with scratching that is from a good spirit. It was a child spirit who died in a farming accident on the property, trying to get attention from the current occupant of the home of the property. Interesting. Low Life said, love this episode! Exclamation point. Chills, which honestly I had chills too.
Yeah, I recommend anyone who's listening, and if you don't follow us on social media, you should. But this is an excellent time to do so because the second story from that episode from Richard, he had a whole playlist of haunting clips, and we talked about in the episode, and I cut them up and I put them out on our social media. And I just have to say, the feeling that I got late at night while editing it felt so creepy.
Yeah.
Like it felt like I was, and then he sends me like this it's not a cryptic message, but he sent me like hey, be very careful about this. This is, it was like a certified, authenticated exorcism from the Catholic Church. Oof. And it's like, this thing is super conscious. It's like looking through a window, and I'm just thinking, here I am editing all of this footage. And I swear to God, I went to sleep that night with my eyes wide open, like my fingers crossed over my chest, just like, please don't see it. Like I legitimately freaked out editing it. So if you want to see allegedly very real paranormal activity caught on video, head over to our social media and check out that clip. It is crazy. It's wild. It is things moving, noises.
It's crazy. It's wild. Sorry, not to cut you off, but that's the intro from Jersey Shore.
It's crazy. It's wild. With Coco Chanel.
Coco Chanel.
What was her name? Coco West? Coco West? Something West.
No. Snooky.
That's ridiculousness. I'm thinking of ridiculousness. I'm sorry. What's her name? Coco Chanel?
That's from Ridiculous.
Yeah. You may sound like I made that person up, like a Barbie doll.
I'm talking about Snooky. Snooky from Jersey
Okay.
Shore. Anyway, let's bring it back to the paranormal. And if you want to connect with the community at large, we have a free Discord where we have lots of people talking about things, not necessarily bizarre.
Some podcasts, some non-podcasts.
Yeah, it's a good way to connect with people who like things that you do.
Yep. But thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.